Good evening, ma'am. Okay. Hello.
Hello, sir. Can you hear me? Hello, sir. Can you hear me?
Yes, yes. I was in mute, loud and clear. Yeah.
Okay. Okay, sir. Okay.
Yeah.
So, shall we start now?
Just a second.
Okay, sir.
Yeah, I think we can start. Maybe I need to present later. So maybe after your introduction, I'll just present, the screen.
Okay. Okay, sir. Okay. Now, good afternoon. The Department of Physics and the IQAC All Saints College welcomes you for this webinar on silicon to systems, how the world has transformed, transformed after the transistor. Now, I invite Dr. Veena Suresh Babu, Assistant Professor, Department of Physics, for the welcome address.
Good evening, everyone. It's my great pleasure to extend a warm welcome to everyone for the webinar on Silicon to Systems, How the World Has Transformed After the Transistor, jointly organized by Department of Physics and the Internal Quality Assurance Cell, All Saints College, Trivandrum. In this occasion, I wholeheartedly welcome our dear principal, Dr. Deepa M. She is a constant source of inspiration in all our endeavors. With her vision and guidance only, we could coordinate and conduct today's event. I welcome you, ma'am. Now, I extend a warm welcome to Dr. Caroline Bina Mendes, Head, Department of Physics, for all the support provided in organizing this event. We are very much delighted and honored to have Mr. J. Krishnan Divakaran, Vice President, VNJ Systems, Bangalore, as the resource person for today's webinar. J. Krishnan Divakaran has more than 35 years of product development experience, especially in real-time embedded and carrier class enterprise ICT software in the defense, telecom, industrial, healthcare, and automotive verticals. He has led many national and international projects for Fortune 500 clients successfully. He has taught at a couple of universities in Kerala as an adjunct professor on sabbatical. He holds a BTech degree in Electronics and Communication from College of Engineering Trivandrum and MS degree in Software Systems from BITS Pilani. He has also attended the Master of Business Laws program from National Law School, Bangalore, and other continuing education programs from Indian Institute of Science, Bangalore, and MIT's Law and Business School. He is currently Vice President, Engineering at a high-tech startup, VNJ Systems, LLP based in Bangalore. Before co-founding VNJ Systems, he was with Philips Innovation Campus, Bangalore, leading the global product sustenance team for one of their flagship radiology informatics solutions. He is a fellow of IETE and senior member of IEEE and currently an active member of Humanitarian Activities Committee with special focus on community of practice on medical devices. His current areas of interest include innovative product development, human-centered design, cyber physical systems, 5G, edge computing, data analytics, machine learning, and deep learning applications. Sir is an eminent industrialist and academician. It's indeed a great fortune to have Mr. Jaykrishnan Divakaran as today's speaker. I welcome you, sir.
Thank you.
I also take this opportunity to welcome Dr. Anjana PS, Assistant Professor, Department of Physics, and the Coordinator, IQAC, to this session. On behalf of the organizing committee, I sincerely welcome all participants to the session. As we know, the world has changed a lot after the invention of transistors in 1947. So, in today's talk, sir will take all of you through a journey after our independence, how the world and the nation got transformed with this technology. I wish you all a fruitful and a productive session. Thank you.
Thank you. I can go ahead and present, right?
Sir, thank you. Okay, sir.
Go ahead. I think go ahead with your proceedings. Yeah.
No, it's actually a note for the this participants. These participants kindly mute your microphone and turn off the video during the presentation. Okay, sir. You can continue, sir.
Yeah. Are you able to see my screen full?
Yes, sir.
Yeah. So good evening, friends from different colleges in Kerala and especially All Saints College. So let me thank the principal Deepa ma'am, and then Anjana, and then Veena and the HOD of the physics department for giving me an opportunity to talk to you all on an interesting subject. So you may wonder, why did I choose transistor on our Independence Day? So if you look at my the first slide, my introductory slide, you can see the correlation. In fact, it was in 1947 on this day, we got independence. That's one of the major milestones in the history of the world. The largest democratic country was born, on this particular date. Interestingly, it was in 1947 that the transistor was invented. So there are two key, milestones in the world history. We have it today, and then we are going to, celebrate the diamond jubilee of, our both these milestones next year. So I thought, it will be relevant for us to, talk about, this particular topic because my career, got developed, along these paths. So what I will do is, I won't, make these things complex. I'll try to do a journey, through my career and how, some of these milestones, mapped with respect to my career. So I'll try to present it in a simple, form, so that all of you can take, some inputs, from this session. So let me give some disclaimers. The first disclaimer is I am not a scientist. I'm basically, a technology guy. I'm an engineer. But I like, scientists very much because science and technology, has got a lot of relationship. Science, invents things, and we engineers, we make it into, products and solutions for the humanity. So that's how the whole thing happens. So scientists and engineers cannot exist in silos. They need to work in close collaboration to make the lives of people around the world better. So I'm just going to take you through this journey. So I will try to give the timelines with respect to my journey over the last 57 years. I just did 57 years end of July. So this had been a very tremendous timeline where a lot of things happen in the world. So let me try to reflect on those things. So many of you youngsters, maybe some of these things it will become you may wonder how these things were like those days, but then that's how history. So I'm going to paint the story of electronics, then software and all those things in the timeline of history, how it evolved. So with that, I'm just going to my first slide. So I'm just going to take you through this journey as I told. So the whole thing started with the Industrial Revolution. As you know, and all of you in history studied about Industrial Revolution. Starting with the first revolution in the 1765. That's when the steam engine was invented, and that has triggered the Industrial Revolution. A lot of industries came up because steam was a power. Steam we know steam in the form of steam engines and steam boilers and all, but then steam as a source of energy has made a big industry. So Industrial Revolution started with the first Industrial Revolution started with steam, the power of steam. And then the second Industrial Revolution started in the 1870s. That's with the invention of electricity. And you know how electricity has transformed the world. Electricity was the next what you call flexible way of using energy, because electricity you can generate in one place, and then you can transmit it over long distances, and then you can use it at a place miles and miles away from the place of generation. But this cannot be possible in the case of steam. So electricity invention has really resulted in a lot of flexibility with respect to how we conduct ourselves and how the industries evolved as a result of this. So it was the 20th century. You can see major transformations happening in the beginning of 20th century using electricity. Then the third Industrial Revolution happened in the 60s. That's when I was born. I was born in 1963. So interestingly, a lot of interesting things happened in that 1960s. So the third Industrial Revolution of computers, computing has come in the mainstream in the 1960s. So in that way, I can say I was born with the computers, but not in the type of computers that we hold in our hand today. These were large, massive computers those days. So computing resulted in a lot of automation, because people who took days and days to compute something, these computers could compute in few seconds. Except Shakuntala Devi sort of people who were almost like computers. So computing had really revolutionized in our world starting from those 60s. And then my journey started with computers but I never knew computers until maybe in the 80s when I joined College of Engineering Thiruvananthapuram, basically for my undergraduate in electronics and communication. Because those days computers were there in the Western world, but for a technology to reach our country it used to take 10 to 20 years. But today if you look at any technology, if the first time the technology will be launched in India first, and the next morning only the technology will be used in US, because most of the design companies around the world has got offices in cities like Bangalore, Hyderabad and all and we design a lot of high-tech things for the world. And then when something happens here the next morning because of the time zone difference, that's when things happen in the US. So we have reversed the whole thing what happened. But those days any technology in the Western country, it will take 10 to 15 years basically to appear in our country, because of a lot of issues which we can discuss as we proceed. And then in the last 10 years, okay, last 10 to 12 years, we are seeing, the new industrial revolution based on, something called Internet of Things. It's also called cyber physical systems, because leading universities in the world, they use this terminology, cyber physical systems. But in our, industry and, in our, what you call, academy and all, we still use the word Internet of Things. So let us understand what are the differences. So these are the key milestones, as I told. The first, starting with steam, then going to electricity, which makes, everything flexible, because you can have a Idiki Dam, generating in hydel power in Molamatam, many kilometers away from your home, while, you are able to switch on your TV and see the evening news, without knowing, where this electricity is generated. Sometimes this electricity, could come from, some thermal power plant somewhere, miles and miles, away from, even our state. So where the source of energy, we need not have to bother at the current point. We are consumers and we keep consuming without, botheration. But in the steam time, as I told, the generation and, the use of energy, has to be, close by. But then with computers, we started getting that number crunching capability, and many things which we could do in days, we could do now in seconds. And then, we are in the age of artificial intelligence, where machines will do, many things for us. So you would have heard, recently, about automation, taking people's job. That's because automation mechanisms can work, 24/7 without any fatigue, and like human being, and then they can repeatedly, result in, consistent results. So the world is now, moving into an automated world, with a lot of machines, doing a lot of our thinking, but still, human being reigns supreme, because the human brain is a very complex, computer, and that level of, computing capability, if we want to achieve, we need to go, many decades, forward. So you need to be very clear with respect to these 4 milestones. Some people, told, fourth revolution, industrial revolution, you can go into internet. In fact, internet, came in the mainstream in the 1990, mid of 90s. But internet was basically for people. So people can, connect to the internet. They can see movies. They can, read newspapers. But then, industrial revolution is all about, how industries can use these technologies to improve the productivity and, the quality of, products and services it creates. So to that extent, industries were never connected to the internet. So that started happening with the arrival of Internet of Things, after 2005 and, things like that. 2005, in the last 10-15 years, we have this terminology called Internet of Things. And instead of Internet of People, we are connecting, things to the internet now. So that means if you go to a factory, you can see, robotic assemblies, robotic arms, assembling the cars, and they will be connected to the internet and they will be communicating each other. And the human being will be just an observer trying to see, how these things are happening. And he will only come into picture when something fails. Otherwise, more or less, most of the automotive manufacturing, across the world has been taken over by robotic arms, which work, based on the Internet of Things. So to that extent, as I told, Internet of Things, have started, the 4th industrial revolution, which is called cyber physical systems. So why do we call, cyber? Why do we call physical? Because everything around the world is physical. That's where physics is coming into picture. So every object, what you see around us, like temperature, humidity, pressure, and there are a lot of phenomena around us. So they're all the physical world. But now with computing, giving the digital edge, we are able to, connect, this physical world to the digital world. So digital world is called cyber world. So once it comes to the cyber world, then we have got all the computing capacity, by which, we can do a lot of, processing to make, a lot of things happen. So that's what we are going to understand. So cyber physical system is nothing but the physical world, its parameters, and, the signals, you convert it into digital. And then once it comes to a digital domain, then computing, platforms are able to, crunch, these digital inputs. And then, you are able to bring out, meaningful insights out of, all the data that you are receiving from all these things. And then, you will be able to do, much better job. So that's the what do you call, premise of, cyber physical systems. Cyber is nothing but digital. So with this introduction, I'll take you to that, 1947, which I mentioned in the beginning of our talk, where the invention of transistors. So as you know, before transistors, there was some alien object here. If you see the bottom left side, you can see, some sort of, cylindrical tubes here. These were the first time electronics, which I started seeing when I was born. Because when I was born in 1960s, the radios that we used to have, they were like, today's big, tube type of televisions. Today, you got a slim, LCD TV on your wall, but a couple of years back, it was a big, a box sort of thing, TV. So radios of those times were almost like, boxes. And the thing, the component which was inside those, boxes was nothing but vacuum tubes. So the shape of these tubes are like this. Today, a small transistor, some of the integrated circuits which we are going to discuss, they have got billions of transistors. So one transistor's capability was what this tube used to give those days. So if you open the large box of radio those days, you can see this sort of what do you call pillars, and and then once you switch on the TV, there will be like olden days bulbs. It will be lighting, and then after 3-4 minutes only your music will come. So unlike today's world, where you people click an app, and then immediately they start hearing the music. Those days, my Murphy radio, if I switch on, there is a magic lamp, which will indicate how much time it will take for it to get heated up, because all these tubes need to get heated up. Then only the electronic circuitries will work properly, and then your music will come after 3-4 minutes. But those days, people were not that busy like today. People were very patient, and we will wait for the music to come. We will not complain, like today's world. Today, you need everything at the tip of your hand, and then you click on an icon, immediately the music should play. But those days it was not like that. So 1947 was a big transformation, because the first transistor was invented at a lab in New Jersey, where I had the opportunity to visit when I was on some official visits. So it was AT&T. AT&T is nothing but American Telephone and Telegraph. Just like our BSNL, US telecom networks were managed by this company called AT&T. It was invented, what do you call it? AT&T was started by Graham Bell. All of you know the person who invented telephone in the 1885. So his company, he started this company called AT&T, which provided telephony and telegraphy services across the US and subsequently to the world. So they had a very, very prestigious laboratory called Bell Labs. Okay, until a couple of years back, Bell Labs was having the same name, but subsequently it was changed, and now Bell Labs is with Nokia, which is based in Europe. So it was in that lab, AT&T Bell Labs, in New Jersey, the transistor was invented, in 1947. So it was a point contact, transistor those days, and the transistor invention was attributed to 3 people here: John Bardeen, Walter Brattain, and then their boss name was called William Shockley. So in fact, William Shockley was working on transistor for even from 1937. But then most of his work was confined to research papers, and it was in theory. But then an invention need to have an implementation. That means the research work need to finally come into a particular device or an appliance, and that's how and then it has to be used for an application. So this transistor, this point contact transistor in 1947, it was used for demonstrating an amplifier. So all of you are familiar with what is an amplifier, because a microphone, is through which you sing some song, and there is a loudspeaker through which you will hear. So between the microphone and the loudspeaker, you have got what we call amplifier, and by just changing the gain of the amplifier, you will be able to hear it louder or at a lower this thing. So the first transistor, point contact transistor, as I mentioned, it was demonstrated as an amplifier. But then the first inventions will always be not that polished or sophisticated. So this point contact diode transistor also was not very easy to produce, because when you make something and invent something, you may have to produce, thousands and millions, for people to use it, in various applications. So this point contact transistor was never, they were not able to produce successfully. But then after many years, a couple of years, the same gentleman, William Shockley, he invented something called the bipolar junction transistor. So most of the students in the electronics and will be knowing about what is a BJT. So today's transistor, when somebody talks about it, is nothing but a BJT, bipolar junction transistor. So that is something which we can easily produce in a manufacturing setup, and then millions and millions of transistors were produced over the many years which happened after 1947. And in 1956, this trio got the Nobel Prize in Physics for this path-breaking invention which happened in 1947. So the destiny of our independence movement and our transistor, that almost coincides. So we got independence in 1947, and in 1947, the transistor got invented by these three gentlemen. And in this picture, you can see William Shockley, the boss, sitting, and then his disciples standing. His disciples were very practical oriented people, but whereas the boss was a theoretical person, and then theory plus practice makes a product. That's what you see here. So on the right side, you can see from the vacuum tubes, we are now having transistors. You can see those black body of these transistors, 3-terminal transistors of different types. There could be power transistors. You can see the large what do you call a round and some sort of fin type transistors. These are power transistors because these are used typically in large power amplifiers and things, so that where a lot of heat gets dissipated. So that's why this body is metallic and things like that. And then you can even have very small transistors. Today most transistors are surface mounted type. You can see some ant-shaped ant-sized devices. These are also transistors which are typically used in all the modern day printed circuit boards. So that's the key. So what many people across the world, when I was doing some research on this for this presentation, I was saying the transistor is the most critical invention of the 20th century. That's how because transistor revolutionized the whole world. So that's why they say the most important invention of 20th century. So I'm going to take you through this quick chart. Actually those transistor was invented on 1947. I have put an arrow there. There had been work on transistors earlier. From 1921, people had been doing a lot of theoretical work, because as you know, any practical implementation will be happening after many years of theoretical work. So in 1921, a gentleman brought out a device called field effect transistor. We normally call it FET. And in 1934, also another inventor somewhere in the world, he also invented a FET. Unlike today's internet world, it's not that when an invention happens, everybody will know the next second. Those days, inventions happen in different continents, different parts of the world, and very late only people know that somebody was also doing similar work like me. So if you can look at this FET also, you can see different parts in 1921, 34, and 1947 we already discussed. And then, as I told, William Shockley, the boss of this team, he invented BJT, which was the device we all talk as transistor nowadays. And then that's used, that can be produced in large numbers. 1952, what's happening? A company called Western Electric, that they started licensing, this technology. They were given the license to manufacture these transistors. 1952 to 55, the transistors. What we discussed so far is the point contact and the bipolar junction transistor. But then transistors are of two different materials. One is germanium, other one is called silicon. So the first transistors, they were all typically germanium transistors. It's from a company called General Electric. All of you are familiar with GE. GE is one of the large conglomerates now. making medical equipments, then jet engines to, turbines to all those things. So they were some of the pioneers, in the germanium transistor. Then there is a company, called Texas Instruments. Okay, all of you are very familiar because it's a big name, in even Bangalore, because they started the first, chip designs, in our country, and first, development center, in 1985 when I just came out of my college. That was from Texas Instruments. So Texas Instruments is attributed to some of the first, users of, these transistors. So that they developed the transistorized radio. So that means in 1954, a radio based on transistor, a mini, radio was made by Texas Instruments. So it is 1954, and you can imagine in my 1965, when I was 2 years old, I started listening to the Murphy radio in my home, which was based on vacuum tubes. So that means after even 10 years, we didn't see, a transistor. The first transistor radio I saw was somewhere in the 1970 in a rich man's house, in my village. He came from UK, and he brought a transistor radio, a very compact, box. And then, I still remember how curious I was listening, to the music. When I switch on the radio, immediately the music comes. But whereas my, large dabba, in my home, based on vacuum tubes, it used to take 2-3 minutes, for the music to play. So this shows, how much we were behind with respect to technology those days. Even 10 years, 15 years, that was the cycle time. A technology appears in US, and for it to, happen in our country, it used to take 10 to 15 years. Then 1954, Texas Instruments, made the first, silicon transistor. And today, all the semiconductor technology is based on, the silicon. Why silicon? Many of you may ask. Silicon technology is based on, sand. So sand, as you know, it's plenty, just like water. Water is not plenty everywhere. Like that, sand. You go to a beach, you can see sand everywhere. So sand is, the base material, for semiconductor manufacturing, because silicon dioxide. And then, that's a foundation of all, semiconductor manufacturing today. So germanium as a technology, more or less nobody is using nowadays. So it's all, silicon everywhere. People talk about silicon. So that's why my talk, is silicon to, systems. Anytime, I think faculty, you want to intervene and stop me, you can unmute and, you can tell me. Otherwise, I'll continue to proceed. So 1955, this gentleman, Shockley, William Shockley, who was the boss, he moved to California from the East Coast, a few years. East Coast is New Jersey, the place where he invented this. Then he moved to the West Coast of US, which is California. And we all hear about California, Silicon Valley, of the world. So then, Silicon Valley is, earliest, what do you call, startups, his company, started, doing something on transistors. But then, he was not a very good boss. What I heard was he may be a very good techie, or he may be a very good, scientist, physicist. But then he was not very good, with the people, who work for them. So within few years, the people, was fed up of, his way of management. And then they all moved and, started, a company called Fairchild Semiconductors. So that is a very important milestone in the history of, semiconductors. Then there was a technology in 1957. It is called silicon control rectifier. So if you look at a lot of power electronics, wherever there is an electricity, you can see, power electronics, all, power, voltage, current, power, So all those high voltage, systems, we use, devices like, silicon control rectifiers and things like that. For example, when you turn the volume control, of a fan, basically what you're doing is you are, trying to control the conducting range, conducting cycle of using an SCR. So that's the concept of, silicon control rectifier. Then 1958, Texas Instruments, developed, another critical milestone called integrated circuit. So what is integrated circuit? Using transistors, you can make, amplifiers, you can make oscillators, you can make, a variety of, circuitries, because all physics students, typically in their laboratories and, your coursework, you study about electronic circuits. So transistor is a foundation element. It's an active component. and there can be, resistors, capacitors, and, inductors, and, all those things through which, you can make a lot of different types of circuits. So when you put, these large circuits, which takes, maybe one tabletop full of, components, and, they are interconnected with wires and all. If you try to shrink it into a small form factor, that's called integrated circuits. So we will see, more about, this integrated circuit. Integrated circuit is nothing but an electronic circuit, which is shrink to very, very small dimension. So that's called integrated circuit. So Texas Instruments, is attributed to be, the team, which started the integrated circuit in 1958. Then, there is somebody, as you know, whenever a technology gets invented, people will patent it. Why do you patent? Because when you patent it, then if others want to use the technology, they have to give royalty to you. So without patenting, what will happen is people will copy, the technology that you develop. You work hard in your laboratories, nights and days, and then, as soon as you bring out, an invention to the outside, if you don't patent it, what will happen is others, smart people, just like, in exams, people copy, and they get more marks than the person who wrote the original answer. So like that, even in the industry also, if you don't patent, a particular invention, what will happen is there are smart people, who are there to copy these inventions and make, much better products than the original product. So patentability, patenting is very important. So that's why any milestone in the any product or, anything, you can see immediately within 1 or 2 years, you can see somebody, trying to patent that. So that means before patenting, you should not publish, these articles, because once, an invention is made public, then you cannot patent. So many times people, will do behind, closed doors, and then, once they apply for patent, then, they can reveal it to the world. So that's a funda. So as I told, Fairchild Semiconductor came from, Shockley's, what do you call, soft skill issues, with his team, and then Fairchild Semiconductor started doing a lot of, semiconductor work. Then 1963, the year I was born, they came out, something called MOSFET. MOSFET is nothing but, a process called, metal oxide semiconductor. And the importance of, this technology was the device circuits which used to draw a lot of current with this MOSFET technology or, CMOS technology. We can make them to draw very less current. That is very important, in a lot of electronic applications. Because power is always a premium. For example, if you are using, a battery, for a particular product, if the circuits draw a lot of current, our battery life, comes down, and every now and then you have to change the battery. But if you are able to use, semiconductor technology, which are based on CMOS and other things, then you can, have, a long battery life, and long battery life means, better for everybody. So that's a funda. So continuing on, this journey. 1965, a gentleman called Gordon Moore, he came out, with a very interesting, statement. He says every 18 months, semiconductor complexity, a semiconductor device density is going to double. That means, given a unit area, the number of transistors you can package in that unit area will double every 18 months. This was a statement, this Gordon Moore told, in 1965. And that law, over the last many years, it holds good. Every 18 months, you can see the number of transistors in a unit area in a new generation silicon device has gone up by, twice. So that's called Moore's law. But Moore's law is almost getting saturated now. So many people around the world, started telling that now within the next, 3-4 years, Moore's law, will no longer be applicable because the semiconductor, the technology, the geometries. When I say geometry, the size of the smallest element there in the fabrication, that has shrunk, and it is now approaching the dimensions of nanometer. So the latest, semiconductor technology people talking about is 7 nanometer. I will explain, some of these things as we proceed. And that is coming as almost closer to the dimensions of an atom and a molecule. So you cannot, go beyond, these fundamental sizes. So Moore's law, is almost, getting saturated. So they say by 2025, Moore's law, that will be the death of the Moore's law. In fact, Gordon Moore became the CEO of Intel, and Intel, right? Intel, maybe from the 70s, Intel rose to be the world's leading manufacturer of semiconductor devices, which we will discuss as we proceed. So let me skip some of these things because I'm going very slow now, I think. So let me take you to the so now with transistors as the basic component, people started making small circuits. Most of the circuits were analog circuits, amplifiers, oscillators, and everything what is used within a radio or a television, and things like that. But once you come into the world of computers, which I told the computing revolution started sometime in the 1965. So we need to have something called memory. Because as you know, a computer should have a memory like our human memory. So Intel, in 1969, brought out the first most transistor memory devices, and in the 1971, Intel brought out the first microprocessor. So what is a microprocessor? Many of you would have heard that. That's the foundation block of any computer. A microprocessor, I can tell you, it basically does arithmetic operations. Like a child, we teach arithmetic to that particular person, adding, subtraction, multiplication, division. That's how a student starts learning. A kid starts learning what you call maths, and then after some time, student will start getting into logical reasoning, or and not all those things. So like that, a microprocessor which is capable of arithmetic and logical operations, that's a foundation of a microprocessor. So it was in 1971, Intel brought out the first microprocessor called 4004, and then they also bought a 8-bit microprocessor which is 8008. So the digit indicates what is that width of its data lines. So a 4-bit microprocessor is 4004. It has got 4 data lines. But whereas in the case of 8008, it has got 8 data lines. When I say lines, it is like the lanes in a highway. So when you have a small town, you may have a 2-lane highway, but when you go to a large city like Los Angeles, you can have a 16-line or 32-lane, not line, lane highway. So in microprocessor also, we call 4-bit microprocessor, 8-bit microprocessor, 16-bit microprocessor, 32-bit, and today we are talking about 64-bit microprocessors. So when I say a 64-bit microprocessor, there are 64 lines. It's a broad highway there. So you will be able to move data very fast because you have got multiple lanes. But if you have got only one lane, like a 8-bit microprocessor, you have to have people go one behind the other. If you look at a truck situation, one truck after the other, you can go. But in the case of an 8-line, 64-bit microprocessor, you can have 8 trucks traversing over the that particular highway at the same time. That increases the operations, the throughput of those microprocessors. So today we are talking about 64-bit microprocessors, but whereas 1971, it was 4004. And then you can see 1973 to 1999, there was a lot of development happening on the microprocessor world, and then even microprocessor, as I told, these are all digital circuits. But there is in the analog circuit world, there is something called operational amplifier. So they also came up in a big way. So there were parallel tracks going. One is analog electronics going up with operational amplifiers, better and better operational amplifiers, and the digital side going up with with the microprocessors. So this was the time I entered the industry. In fact, when I joined CET in 1980, I joined basically thinking I can work on computers. Those days there were 2 computers in India, in Kerala. One was at the Vikram Sarabhai Space Center, and the other was in CET Trivandrum. So the basic reason I moved from my village in Kochi to Trivandrum basically to start working on computers. But what happened was those days computers were very big. So I was not able to touch a computer till I came out from that college till 1985. So that shows even where there was a computer, computers were not approachable like today's scenario. So then in 1983, you can see there is a device called IGBT. This is called the insulation gate bipolar transistor technology. So this was interestingly invented by a gentleman from Bangalore. His name is Jayant. Currently, he is in the North Carolina University, and he also happened to be the son of Bharat Electronics CMD those days. In fact, I had the opportunity to work in Bell from 1986 to 96 for 10 years. So Bell laid my foundations, and Bell was the pioneer electronics company in the country, founded in 1954 under Pandit Nehru's vision. So Bell was the pioneer in India in bringing out electronics, and then the CMD of Bell in the 60s to 70s. His son invented this IGBT. So in fact, he was there in Indian Institute of Science, giving a talk, and he was mentioning about his lives in the place where I was also, I also lived, And this IGBT today accounts for all the power electronics, which is powering the world, including electric locomotives, electric, a large machinery, everything in the world. When somebody talks about IGBT, it is an invention from India. But he didn't invent in India. He was in US that time. He was working for General Electric, I think. So he is attributed for the invention of IGBT. IGBT is a power electronics system. 1984, there is another major invention from a company called Altera. This is called field programmable gate array. So field programmable gate array is nothing but a type of integrated circuit technology where you will be able to interconnect the various circuits by means of programming it. Because in hardware, the biggest issue is once you connect the various components, then it is not very easy to change those interconnections. But with the advent of this field programmable gate array, by just simply programming the device, all the internal components you can reconnect. So today people talk about 4G communication, then 5G communication, 3G communication, and all. So when the base stations are changed for different generations, they don't change the boards, and they don't change everything because of new technology. So they only program the field programmable arrays which are going into the electronics in these base stations of these 3G, 4G, and 5G, and then automatically it will adapt to the new technology. So that means it has given a lot of flexibility, because instead of every time throwing out the old electronics and putting it new, we got a mechanism by which now you are able to reconfigure the electronic circuits using this technology called FPGA. The next one is 1995 power MOSFET. This is also widely used the inverters, because in your home everybody has got an inverter, so a lot of power electronics goes there. When I say power, the voltages are high, the currents are high, that's why it's called a power electronics. But whereas an amplifier in a radio, it need not be a power device. So power MOSFETs has revolutionized a lot of things like motor drives, then the inverters which you are having at home, and all those things. Then 1998, a technology called FinFET came up. FinFET is nothing but a three-dimensional technology for increasing the density of transistors in a particular device. Earlier it was all 2D layouts. Now it has become 3D layout. So when Moore's law was started straining, they started thinking instead of horizontal way of building things, they started thinking vertical ways of building things. Like in a city, initially all the cities it will start with single floor houses. Then as the density of the people in the city goes up, then a lot of apartments will come up, high-rising buildings will come up. So even in the semiconductor world, you can see technologies like FinFET made a lot of 3D type of architectures for packing more and more transistors to keep up with the Moore's law. Then you had gallium nitride transistors, especially with on all these high speed high frequency transistors which go into satellites and all those things. You have to use a different material than silicon. So gallium nitride as a technology came up, and that started powering all these microwave frequencies which are used in satellites and things like that. And today we are almost getting into the quantum computing world. And if you look at any quantum architecture today, you can see the very large size stuff. So I used to wonder how they will get miniaturized. So many research labs around the world started looking at how to make quantum transistors. But currently it is like vacuum tube size. Just like in the 50s, when we could see large vacuum tubes, as transistors. But then today, we are at the same stage, with respect to quantum computing, where the size of these devices are pretty large and very complex structures and all, but which in the next 10 20 30 years they will also get miniaturized, and 40 years from now our kids they will be able to play with quantum computers the size of our mobile phone. But at this time quantum computer is a very very large structure and things like that. So semiconductor, as I told, the technologies are approaching something called 5 nanometer. 5 nanometer is the dimension of the gate which is part of these devices, because it has got source, drain, and gate. So the gate size, channels width, that's what this technology indicates. So we are coming very close to the size of the atoms and molecules. So below that, we cannot shrink. That's why I'm saying we are reaching the theoretical limits, and the Moore's law will not be holding good going forward. So this is the structure. So I already explained Moore's law a lot. So you can see from 1970 to 2020. You can see a linear relationship. This graph shows the vertical axis, number of transistors per chip, per unit area you can take, and then bottom x-axis shows the timeline. So you can see more or less a linear graph there, and that means the Moore's law is holding good. Every 18 months you can see the density of the transistors doubling up, and you can see different devices starting from Intel devices, then Pentium, then today we are talking about an i7, i3, and all those things, and then AMD is another vendor who is making chips. So I'm just not going to take much time. In the semiconductor integration, we started with small scale integration, and then it went through medium scale SSI, MSI, medium scale, very large scale integration, and today we are talking about ultra large scale integration. So a lot of the latest microprocessors which are used in our mobile phones and our laptops and all coming under the category of ultra large scale integration sort of thing. But when I started in Bharat Electronics in the 1985, I used to see devices at the SSI and MSI being manufactured by Bell. But today we have one facility in India which manufactures at VLSI level, but ultra large scale integration we don't have facility in India. So I'll explain how it is this thing. But Intel from the 1970s, as I told, it has become a very prominent name, and they have revolutionized the world with their devices. And if you really look at the chip design, it happens mainly in three major hubs. One is in Silicon Valley in California, then the other one is in Israel, Tel Aviv, and then Bangalore in India. So we can be proud that in our country, most of the what you call design activities, a lot of design companies are there in Bangalore, starting from Texas Instruments, which started in 1985. Today, Bangalore has got any semiconductor company in the world. You can see a design house in Bangalore. That's the interesting thing. But recently, you can see. But then there are two aspects in making an integrated circuit. One is the design. That is called the intellectual property. Okay, but then it has to be put it into a semiconductor wafer, and then you have to make the chip out of that. So that is called a foundry. So silicon foundries are very labor intensive, and a lot of clean rooms are required, because the geometries that we are talking about is in the nanometers. So this is currently the what you call forte of countries like Taiwan and China. There is a company called TSMC in Taiwan. So they have large manufacturing things, and most of the semiconductors in the world gets manufactured there. But it's designed, and all the intellectual property happens in the three design centers which I mentioned earlier. So you can see here on the right, semiconductor wafers. Wafer is nothing but a large stuff, and each wafer will contain hundreds of dices, small squares you can see. So that's one which goes into a black package integrated circuit. So what you're seeing those big circled stuff they're all called wafers, and one wafer will contain many what you call dices, and each dice is nothing but which goes into an integrated circuit, and each dice will contain billions of transistors. So on the top, you can see this is the what you call a high resolution electron microscope image of one of the dice where the circuitries you can see. This is something like a big map of a city where there are different types of houses and things like that. But here it is all RAMs, ROMs, microprocessors, then different interface circuitries. So this is a big layout, and this is the type of design that people in Bangalore and all do. So the top one is nothing but the design activity, and the bottom one is nothing but a manufacturing activity. Design activity is the most value-added activity, and that happens in the three centers which I explained earlier. But the bottom one is a very, clean room oriented, and it's a manufacturing activity. That's what happens in China, and this thing. So this is the company, in Punjab, Punjab or Chandigarh? Yeah, it's in Chandigarh. So it's called Semiconductor Laboratory. They make, very large scale integrated circuits in the country. But initially, Bell used to do that is small scale integrated and the small, medium scale integrations they used to do. But semiconductor complex, makes all the microprocessors needed for our space program. For example, this organization comes under ISRO, and then ISRO's the microprocessors which goes into ISRO's rockets and satellites, they get manufactured in this particular center based in Chandigarh. So this is an interesting thing which I wanted to highlight. This whatever I had been talking so far had been mainly in the industry. But then in the last 20 years, there had been a lot of activity happening in the academia. For example, Indian Institute of Science, Bangalore, and IIT Mumbai, they were awarded two major projects 10 years back by Dr. Atre, who was the what we call defense minister's advisor and the DRDO chief. He was an alumni of Indian Institute of Science, and so he took interest, and he got two national programs funded, one at IISc Bangalore and other at IIT, basically to set up nanoscience laboratories. These are all the state of the art what you call labs, which can compete with any other lab in any university around the world. So every year during the Founders Day in March, IISc allows the public to come and see the lab. So I have taken many of my students to this lab and conducted around them. So it has got very high what you call standards of clean rooms, and you can see the yellow clean rooms in the below, because the yellow light is required not to make chemical reactions, because the semiconductor manufacturing uses technology like photolithography. So it's everything light through which many things are accomplished. So ambient light will have a lot of problems, and so all these things are illuminated with yellow light. So the gentleman who is here is Navkant Bhatt, who is the professor leading this particular lab. Though this facility came up 10 years back, it was inaugurated by our Prime Minister around 4-5 years back. And you can see a lot of partners for this lab, starting from Bharat Electronics, Centum, it's a semiconductor company, then L&T. You can see a lot of companies partnering with them. And so this is a facility of Indian Institute of Science. So anytime you come to Bangalore next, if you happen to come during the Founders Day in March first week, it is on a Saturday, you can visit this lab, and you can see all very, very sophisticated things happening there. And then I'm going to take you through I may take some 10 more minutes in this session. So Anjana, I just wanted to check with you. Is it okay to take 10 more minutes?
Yes, sir, it's okay, no problem.
Okay. So now, having explained, the minute components, the semiconductors, the transistors, and the fabrication of transistors, the design activities, and things like that. I want to take you to the system side now. So we started with silicon, and now we are going into the system side. So you can see, how the computing evolved, because that's the third, industrial revolution, which I told, in the 1965. So in the 1950s, you can see the IBM, 704, mainframe computer. So it's a big hall full of, things. And then a lot of magnetic media was used as memories. And then, large, everything. Today's your mobile phone is like, those days, a big, hall full of, this stuff. Many of you, may feel all these things are alien, but that is how, all the computing, places, used to work. Even when I joined Bell, I used to see these things, in our computing center. These are all large, IBM, mainframe computers. And then people used to connect to these computers from some other room, using some terminals. But those days, even computer terminals were not there. In fact, when I started my work in Bell, I started working on teletypes. It is like a typewriter. So you need to keep, keying in the inputs, through this sort of teletype, stuff into these things. So these are all, if you go to any museum, you can see, all these things. But then that's how, we started our career. So in the mid 70s, there is something called mini computers came. These are all, not large. Earlier ones are called mainframes. And then smaller, mini computers, came. So when I was working in Bell, I used to use these computers, for doing computer-aided design, for making printed circuit board designs and things like that. So VAX was a very famous name, and VAX used to be, manufactured by a company called Digital Equipment Corporation. So you can see DEC there. But the interesting thing, in the years I passed out happened was the introduction of IBM PC. IBM PC, was introduced. Personal computer was introduced in 1981, 12th August, a couple of days earlier, because today we are on 15th August. So 1981, but this revolutionized the whole world. Because till that time, computing was thought, it is in some, selected places. Like I told, when I passed out, when I joined CET, it was only 2 places in Kerala had computer. One is at CET, and the other one was in the Vikram Sarabhai Center. But once IBM PC came, then it was felt that, a PC can be, can go to people's home and people can start owning one computer. Before that, you can only dream that you can, play with computers. So when I started in Bell in 1987, 2 years from, my starting, I was able to touch, a IBM PC those days, and we used to look at the screen, it was all monochrome screens, some greenish, colored fonts used to come. There was not much graphics, so you keep typing in, some COBOL programs, or then, something. The operating system was called DOS, disk operating system. This is all, our what do you call, the Microsoft founder, right? So his life, is all around, this one. He brought out, some of the first, IBM PC clones, and then he built the Microsoft Windows operating system, and things like that. So so that's how, the PC started. So I had also the opportunity to assemble my first IBM PC, in 1989. I bought, various modules, like, the keyboard, then the disk, then the motherboard, then the memory. So I assembled, my first computer, in 1987, which was, looked at, as a big this thing. Because I still remember computer science students, who have completed engineering, they used to touch, this computer, and as if, they never touched a computer. So those days, people were, used to pass out computer science courses, without touching computer. So you can imagine what was this thing. So today we are talking about, the supercomputers. 2 months back, on June 22nd, there was an announcement from Japan. This is the most powerful supercomputer in the world. It's called Fugaku. Okay, and till that time, the most of the competition was between the United States and China. Okay, the previous machine was Summit. It was from the Oak Ridge, National Laboratory in Tennessee. So this Japanese computer now is the fastest computer, 2.8 times faster than the computer in US, and it performs operations of 415.53 petaflops. So peta means you can imagine 10 raised to so many big numbers. So it is a very large computation. So typically, supercomputers are regarded as when the computing power of a machine goes more than 1,000 times that of a mainstream computing platform, then it's called a supercomputer. So India also made supercomputers at Center for Development of Advanced Computing in Bangalore. There is a computer system called Param. So in the 80s and 90s, CTAC developed this in Bangalore, and that is used in various applications. So India also made small experiments in supercomputing, but then US, China, and Japan, they lead in this race of supercomputers. Supercomputers are typically used in large, complex problem solving, especially genome sequencing, which is a very interesting area in the search for precision medicine to understand human genomes, and then you can really develop medicines which can quickly act on these issues. So genome sequencing is a big area. Then weather modeling, climate, for example, as you would have heard, to predict the rains and winds and all those things, it is a very lot of computation has to happen, because there are thousands and thousands of parameters which need to be analyzed. So supercomputers are used in weather modeling, then this sort of genome sequencing, which are highly compute intensive operations. So that's the thing. So I'm just going to skip some of these things because we don't have much time. These slides will be distributed to all of you. So this is something picked up from Intel. So you can go through how computing evolved in the last 30, 40 years, how different microprocessors came up. So I will add some sources to acknowledge from where I picked up these things, and I will circulate these slides so that you can go through at leisure and you can understand how things happened. So that's very interesting. But I just wanted to highlight a couple of interesting things for people. Starting from microprocessors, people learn in the colleges about transistors, circuits, and all those things. But then subsequently, most of the people just get out of this field, what they learned. But today, we have excellent opportunity. You can play with what you learned, at your home. So you can see some boards here. The bottom left is called Arduino board. This is a board introduced in 2005 from Japan, Italy. In fact, from a interaction design school, some fashion design students wanted to develop something, and they didn't know anything about programming. They didn't know anything about electronics. So somebody thought, why don't we design a simple computer, okay, by which you can do some small things, and that's how Arduino was done. Today, if you go to any engineering student in Kerala, and just tell Arduino, immediately he will say, oh, I am using Arduino to make that project, this project, and things like that. You can get this for around 300 rupees, and you can connect this to a computer using a USB cable, and then you can develop interesting programs. And once you develop program, you can light an LED, you can turn on a motor, you can do all sort of interesting things. And then on the top, right, you can see a board called Raspberry Pi. This has come from again from UK. In 2012, they designed this board basically to give computing to underprivileged societies around the world. Because buying a computer, you have to pay 30,000 rupees, and you have to buy a desktop or a laptop. But whereas this credit card size computer, it costs only some 2,800 rupees. So it has got everything what is required for a normal computer. You can connect a USB keyboard. You can you can connect USB keyboard. You can connect a USB mouse. Then you can connect Ethernet cable to the router. You can connect the HDMI port to a monitor. So you can make it as a full-fledged computer. So this is a very cheap computing resource, but very powerful. People make a lot of projects out of this. Then the middle, you can see this is called Node MCU. It is at 300 rupees. Small board. You have a breadboard, white breadboard here. This is for wiring things. And you can see a small OLED display here, around 300 rupees display. You can get a good resolution. You can see a girl's face here. So you can make it very user interface. Color displays are available. So you can write programs and you can see a lot of things on this sort of environment. On the extreme right, you can see again from BBC, they brought out a platform basically for school students to learn programming. Very cheap product. It was in 2015 they brought out. So this is called BBC Microbit. So these are all the most popular what you call open source computers available in the world. So you get all the information with respect to the design of these boards, schematics, which are the foundation of understanding any electronic circuit, and then you can get a lot of software done by various people. So you can buy these things at very small price, and then you can start playing with that. So whoever is wanting to pursue their hobbies, or if they are learning in electronics, they should start looking at these things. When I was started Bell, to get this sort of an environment for me to start developing software, it used to cost 5 lakhs to 10 lakhs. We used to buy large systems from Hewlett Packard and all those companies to do our work. Today, as I told I can do a lot of software development in my home with a laptop and this sort of a system for hardly 300, 400 rupees. So the things have become very affordable, and students can build their own labs in their homes. So I am now taking you to this journey of large systems getting built using all these small boards. The boards in the earlier thing has got semiconductor chips here. You can see these black chips. These are all system on chips. Yeah, you can see on this Raspberry Pi there is a what do you call it, a metal, what do you call it, topped, part. This has got billions of transistors inside this. So this is a system on chip, an entire system which used to take, multiple holes, in a 1980 scenario is now packaged into a few millimeter by few millimeter, semiconductor chip, which has got billions of transistors. So this is a system on chip, which is part of the Raspberry Pi board. So you can see, those boards go into, large complex systems like this. You can see an aircraft carrier, which is, carrying, so many fighter aircrafts there. So it has got a lot of communication systems, control systems, command systems, everything is electronics. Then you can see, all complex systems which go into a fighter jet. You can see, to modern, cars, you would have heard, autonomous cars now, no need for a driver. It will have so many sensors, and then it will be able to navigate by itself. So all these things, are possible. And then, they are coming out every day in the last 20-25 years. And then, other than the computing elements, sensor domain is also exploding like anything. Because a lot of sensors are getting done now in the micro and the nano area. So if you go to Indian Institute of Science, Nanoscience Center, a lot of PhD theses have come out, building sensors for different applications, biomedical sensors, then chemical sensors. So this is a very exciting world. So one is computing, the other one is like our brain, and then our sensors in our body, like eyes, ears, nose, throat, hand, and everything. So like that, there are a lot of sensors are also coming out, from all these places. And the last slide, which I'll take 2 minutes, and then I'll conclude. So that's what is called the fourth industrial revolution, which kicked off, some 10 to 20 years back. So what is this, cyber physical system? I already explained what is cyber, what is physical. I explained because, as I told, in the center of this one on the left side, you can see the computing. That's where all these large, computing platforms like supercomputers and other mainstream computers are there. But then on the periphery, you can see, a lot of things which are nothing but the physical world. So on the top, you can see Internet of People. It started in 1995, and half the world's population is now connected to the internet. That's what the reports say. So that's what people getting connected. But then on the left side, you can see something called Internet of Things. So what is Internet of Things? Everything in your home is going to get connected to the internet now. Your refrigerators, your microwave ovens, to everything, clock, anything you see in your home, currently it is acting on your command, your intelligence. But going forward, they are all going to become intelligent, and they will all get connected to the internet, just like people got connected to the internet. But then the number of people in the world is only around 7.5 billion people. So even if everybody in the world gets connected to the internet, it's only going to be 7.5. But the number of devices are very, very large. So companies like Cisco and some of the companies tell within the next 5 years, by 2025, the number of devices which are getting connected to the internet is going to be 50 billion. Some people say 100 billion. So the world is going to be highly intelligent when everything gets connected to everything. But then there are people sitting and trying to hack into all these systems. So every technology has got a positive side and there is a negative side. So a lot of cybersecurity research is happening around the world. A lot of cryptography techniques are getting developed. So the world is becoming smart. What is smart? Smart is nothing but giving intelligence to something, and then it will make an automatic decision. So that's called smart this thing. So our electricity grid is going to become smart. So it's called smart grid, like the smart factory. Then smart home. Smart home means you need not to do anything at your home. As soon as you get into the home, your temperature gets adjusted in your home. Then window, curtains will automatically adjust to your preferences. So everything is going to become intelligent. So that's the state. And then in between, you can see your social media getting in. So this is the world called, this is the world of internet of, things like that. And then on the right side, you can see a very interesting, technology which is getting developed. This is called digital twin. So whenever you hear the term twin, what does it mean? There is, two entities. So the first entity is nothing but the physical system, which is nothing but your factories, your home, everything, your engines, turbines, everything is the physical world. That is on the left side. And then you make a model of that on the right side. Okay, that you can make models on your computer. So a physical world, you can make it as a model on the right side on a powerful computing platform. Because today even your mobile phone has got quad-core CPUs and a lot of RAMs and things like that. So computers are becoming very, very fast. So we are able to build digital models of the physical artifacts, and then we will be able to make a lot of simulations. So the interesting aspect of this is that we can try a lot of things without upsetting the physical things. For example, in a passenger aircraft, when it is flying, suppose the engine is shut off. Okay, then it can even crash the aircraft. But whereas if the digital model is available, you can do what if scenarios. Suppose I switch off this engine, what will happen? Suppose if I switch off that sensor, what will happen? Because everything is running on your computer, and anything which is catastrophic happening, it's only confined to the computer. But if you do it on a physical asset, like a aircraft engine, or a turbine, or a missile, or a space rocket and things like that, then if something goes bad, the whole project will crash. But whereas here, again and again, you can reboot the machine, and you can just rerun your simulations. So this is called the concept of digital twin. That is nothing but a physical entity on the left side, which is nothing but this thing. But on the right side, you have got a digital entity which is exact same model. That's where scientists are important. Because engineers are good in computing computers, and setting up things and things like that. But all these things, models are based on equations, mathematics, physics, chemistry, and a lot of physical mechanisms. We have to make it into equations, and we have to run it on through computer programs here. But in recent times, there are very powerful simulation engines from platforms like ANSYS and all come up. So not everybody need to know programming and things like that. Even scientists in their research laboratory, they can buy these simulation platforms, and they can easily construct the models with respect to their equations and things like that, and they will be able to simulate physical systems. And then they can do a lot of research with respect to doing this what if analysis. And between a physical and what you call this digital system, there can be continuous movement of data. Sensors can bring real-time data from all these physical systems assets into our digital system, and the digital system can continuously learn. So the model that you initially build, it can continuously learn using machine learning techniques, and then it can automatically become a more and more mature model. So that is the future going forward. So this is going to revolutionize many areas. Like as I told, space systems has to be done like this. Otherwise, you cannot play with actual systems to do various things, because it will be catastrophic. Similarly, it is going to come into every small field, and it's a great opportunity for all researchers, and it's a great opportunity for a lot of youngsters who are coming out from BSc mathematics, BSc physics, chemistry, MSc physics, chemistry, because the modeling is the word of scientists. But whereas engineers basically are good at putting instrumentation of sensors, connecting it to these models, and so this is a great area for engineers and scientists to work. And I think there is going to be a lot of things happening going forward in this domain. So this is my presentation. So I'll just stop here. I took almost 15 minutes more. I'm sorry about that, because it's such a vast subject. And maybe I will throw open for questions, so that I can just see how I can address those things. Over to Anjana.
Thank you very much, sir. It was indeed an interesting and informative session. Dear participants, we would also like to hear from you. If you have any queries, you can please unmute and you can ask directly.
So if you have some questions later also, you can just send a mail to me. I will definitely respond, even if not that day. In the next 1 or 2 days, I can respond. But this talk was basically to trigger your interest on what is happening around the world, because I see a lot of potential for science graduates who are coming out from colleges like yours. So faculty and students, if you have got any questions, you can always write to me. But then if you have any questions at this point, I will be happy to address that.
Participants have any queries, can ask directly. Or you can put in the chat box also. Sir, I think nothing is there.
Yeah.
One
No problem.
sir, one question.
Go ahead.
Can you make transistor without doping?
Uh, I don't know. I am not able to answer that because, as I told, I'm not a scientist who gets into, that fabrication aspects and, those areas. But let me note down that specific question. Without doping, can you make a transistor? But doping is a foundation of transistors. But then, is there any other technique? And I'll just find out.
Okay, sir. So one more question. Where do India's supercomputers stand as per world standards?
I think we are not that great, but as I told, we have started in CDAC, in the I think it was in the early 90s. In fact, one of my former bosses in Bharat Electronics, Dr. Paul Raj, and then there is another gentleman, I just forgot his name. Those started in the early 90s. So there is a Param supercomputer. So there are different versions which are getting created. So at this point, how it compares with the latest, computing matrices of these global players, I haven't compared, but I will also research on that and I will come back to you. But we are far from those large infrastructures. In fact, supercomputing facility-wise, Indian Institute of Science has got a department called Supercomputing Research Institute. So I had the opportunity to visit that multiple times. So they basically have got supercomputers from US, Cray computers. But with respect to an indigenous design, it's all the work that is done by CDAC and Tata Institute of Fundamental Research also did some work, and then but the capability with respect to the world standards, at this point I am not able to tell you the figures, but I will come back.
Okay, thank you, sir. Hope there are no other doubts.
Yes,
One more question has, yes, sir. There are lots of engineering colleges offering courses on VLSI, UVLSI. What's the prospectus of these courses?
Right. As I told, it's a very interesting question because what's happening, there are a lot of jobs, in this field, in India, because a lot of design activity, across the world, has moved to, centers like Bangalore and Hyderabad. These are the two centers, you can see, a lot of design houses here. So there are very powerful, VLSI, ultra VLSI, design tools. These are called ECAD tools. There are companies like Cadence, Synopsys, and all. They've got very complex tools. So students, will be involved in different, stages of, this particular life cycle, design life cycle. But lot of, jobs are there in the validation space. So validation is nothing but, designs are typically done by, very experienced people. But when it comes to testing, what is happening, they give it to a lot of fresh students, who are coming out from all these specialized courses, because many universities are offering MTech, VLSI courses. So, but what they study, because I've gone through all the syllabus of these universities, the practical level of what you call this thing is limited. So, but they will study a lot of foundational aspects of design flows, and then the manufacturing aspects and things like that. But then they have to do some 6 months to 9 months internship in some of these design houses like Intel, Broadcom, and all those places. Then only they get a real grip of how to start working on these areas. But there is opportunity, but it's not like the opportunity in the IT space. In the IT, a lot of people work in the application software development space. So most of the work in our 160 billion, outsourcing, in India is in application development and application maintenance. But VLSI is a very niche area. It comes under the field called product engineering services, and the opportunities numbers are not very high. But then the people who are taken in this organization, they should have very strong foundations. Because they should be very good in analytical skills. They should be able to, they should know pretty good, electronics fundamentals. Because in software, you can go to NIT or any of these, mainstream, training houses, and you can learn things. But VLSI is a domain, even if you get trained on a CAD tool or ECAD tool, unless you know the fundamentals, you won't be able to bring out, quality things output. So all these companies like Intel, Broadcom, and all those people, they basically do thorough interview, before selecting students. So just doing a course in VLSI, is not sufficient, for you to get a job in any of, this sort of, companies. But in VLSI, the course is offered as VLSI and embedded systems. So embedded system has got, a lot of software aspects and all. That's for building, small systems using integrated circuits and all. So that, there are a lot of, small and medium companies around the country. But if you really ask me on VLSI, this is a very niche area, and very specialized, companies, work in this area. So you need to have very strong foundations, and then only they will take in this organization.
So there are a few more questions. So one is
Go
about why we select group 13 for P-type semiconductors.
Could you repeat?
Why we select group 13 for
Okay.
P-type semiconductors?
Okay, these are all very interesting questions, because in my disclaimer, I didn't tell, because I am basically a system engineer. So my interest, on these semiconductors, take me only make only a use basically, to guide, people to various labs and things like that. But I didn't work, in my 40 years, on, very low level aspect, semiconductor manufacturing. So that's why the doping and, this 13, all those things, I am not able to, this thing. But I think one of my close colleague, she is in the call, I think, mostly. So we will write down, some of these questions, and I don't know whether she can help, in answering these things. But definitely I can get, answers for these things. Maybe Veena, maybe you could, if this is recorded, later I could hear and I can respond to those things.
Yes,
but again, let me tell you, some of these, doping and all those things, that is the field of scientists. It is not really the field of, engineers, but engineers do that when it is in a manufacturing stage. But my work, the last 40 years, was never inside, semiconductor manufacturing, setup. The closest I did was, circuit design using FPGAs, and I also got trained, from Plessey Semiconductors, on some semiconductor tools, somewhere in the 1990s. But I am basically a system guy who puts together, boards and build large systems. That's my background.
Okay, sir. Okay, sir. So another question is, what do you feel about the possibility of a full-fledged fabrication lab and foundry similar to TSMC being set up in India?
Yeah, that's a very, very interesting question, because there have been interesting debates on this subject. In fact, a couple of months, 2 months back, there was a very interesting panel discussion from Kerala, which was, chaired by, Vijay Raghavan, who is the founder of, the startup ecosystem in Kerala, in Trivandrum, startup that, facility. So there were a couple of people from Singapore and, Southeast Asia, talking about why India is not able to, bring up manufacturing houses here, why, all the work is going to Vietnam. Because China, in the current this thing, many companies are moving away from China. So why don't we get those things to India? So I just put, a very interesting thing in the chat box. I told, the culture in India, is not, really suitable for, semiconductors. So that's a statement I just put. And I also put one more liner saying that the kumkum culture of India. So I don't know, Vijay Raghavan was not able to understand this kumkum, but later he understand. Initially he thought, I'm putting a sarcastic comment. So what I was saying is these needs, very, very, very sophisticated clean room, facilities. So you cannot wear a kumkum and get into this sort of, even before entering a clean room, you have to wear a lot of aprons. Just like, COVID times, you can see people wearing PPE. This is much more, stringent than PPE. And then you have to go through, different showers, and, then only you can get inside, because the number of particles, in these clean rooms are extremely low. So our culture of, loosely, wearing, different and that is not, really conducive for this. So somehow, Vijay Raghavan didn't understand, because he is not from this particular field, but that maybe that people from the semiconductor world, there, in Singapore understood this. So in India, the answer is, India is very good enough for design services. So that's why, over the last 20-25 years, we became a powerhouse, for design services. But when it comes to, fabrication, manufacturing, and, especially, semiconductor manufacturing, we didn't, we are not very good. Indian Institute of Science, I told, it's a state-of-the-art, facility, but then it is used for, just research. Okay, but then manufacturing plant, will have not just 3-4 scientists. It will have a lot of people, basically doing the job. So their discipline and there are a lot of cultural aspects which will come into picture. And then maintaining that, this thing, so this South Asian country, Taiwan, so that became, a very, it is the powerhouse now. And I was trying to read, the people and, their culture and, how they are disciplined and, how they are, everything from US, all the foundries are now moving to, Taiwan. So it's a cultural aspect and then work discipline, a lot of things, so it's a very interesting area for, someone to take up as a research, going forward.
Sir, one more question. I think this is the last question. Sir, it is regarding, do you think Kerala has to develop academic institutions to promote development in this field so more creative and talented mind can come forward? Also, do you think the present curriculum in institutions is enough for the development in this field?
That's a very interesting thing because that's something very close to me. From 2012 to 2016, I had visited most of the engineering colleges, especially government colleges in Kerala, and I have interacted with students. I used to do workshops and things like that. But what is missing, in our academia is a collaboration with the industry. You understand, right? Kerala, as you know, had an establishment called Keltron. Because when I was doing engineering, Keltron emerged as a powerhouse in Kerala. Because KPP Nambiar, who started Keltron, he was earlier a department head in BL, Bharat Electronics. So he came and, Keltron, was a big name, when I was in CET. But over the last 30, 40 years, instead of going up, and become a world powerhouse, Keltron, became more or less a training house, in recent times. I can see, Keltron board in every, place like, a tutorial institute, which was not a good thing because that shows, the political support and all those things for, research labs in our place. But with respect to the university question that you asked, unless you have got Keltrons and other industries there, unless you have collaborations, and unless students go and do internships, in these places, the learning, which is going to be, not that good. For example, I'm interacting with, an MTech student from a college in Bangalore. He has done his internship for 9 months, at Intel. So I asked him to do some presentation for me, and when I heard the presentation, I really got, surprised because he has learned so much in the last 9 months than the first 1.5 years in his MTech program. That is because he worked with the actual practitioners of this thing, in a world standard laboratory like Intel, and he was able to do these things. But look at, Kerala, students from Kerala, their internships are mostly within their colleges. So anything more than, what they learn, in their theory, I don't think, they are able to, get in. But there are other interesting labs like National Physical and Oceanographic Lab in POL Kochi. But that's a defense lab, so they don't, encourage much, student projects and all there. But then if you look at industry in Kerala, it's hardly limited. But places like Bangalore, because of a lot of this, scientific and, other this thing, they do a great job. But VSS is another place, but they're also, normally in all the colleges, the top, maybe 2-3 people may get, admission in VSSC for doing projects. But then, what about the other 48 people? So we need to have, a good, industry presence, basically for students to, get into, a lot of practical oriented thing. But today in my presentation, I put a lot of things where you can convert your home into a lab. I'm not saying your whole room, you have to change it into a lab. I'm saying with a laptop and with a 300 rupees to, 3,000 rupees, all the boards that I showed, you can connect and you can buy sensors, actuators, and you can start playing yourself at home without anybody's guidance, because there are a lot of material, there are a lot of YouTube videos, and you can become a very, very expert person. I'm telling you, 2 days back I was reading an article. A 5th standard student, won a MIT application development context. Okay, using MIT app developer, he was building a mobile app for climate change. So today, the opportunities are plenty. No need to go to Keltron or VSSC. If the person is very proactive person, he can buy these things and he can do a lot of things in their home.
Okay, thank you, sir. Hope there are no other questions. So now I invite Dr. P.S. Anjana, Assistant Professor, Department of Physics and Coordinator IQAC, to propose the vote of thanks.
Thank you, Veena. Good evening. Gratitude is the most exquisite form of courtesy. Today, I take the opportunity to put all my gratitude into words. On behalf of Department of Physics and the IQAC All Saints College, I take this opportunity to propose vote of thanks to those who have directly and indirectly contributed to this webinar. First and foremost, I thank God Almighty for the blessings He has bestowed upon us to make this webinar a success. Fortunately, we have with us today the eminent personality with a blend of academic as well as industrial experience, Mr. Jayakrishan Divakaran, to deliver the lecture. And the speaker has introduced a very interesting topic. Now, we have experienced a powerful and a systematic disclosure on the history of the industrial revolution in the world and its impact in India after the invention of transistors. And as all of you know, the history of development of any scientific invention assumes much significance for a person pursuing studies in science and technology. Those moments of invention of transistor may seem anticlimactic to us now, but imagine not having discovered them at all. Jayakrishan sir has voluntarily agreed to deliver the lecture, and we are really enlightened with your knowledge and presence. We are all inspired by your great words, and we understand that you have taken time out of your very important schedules to contribute to this webinar. Thank you, sir. And on behalf of myself, the Department of Physics, the IQAC team, and the management of All Saints College, I express my sincere gratitude to the speaker. Thank you, sir.
Yeah, thank you. I just was full screen with my slides, so I was not clear who was speaking. So many times now I was referring Veena by Anjana. So thanks Veena for all the time that you took to moderate this particular thing. Yeah, so in fact I am very happy on a very important day I was able to converse with a completely different what you call set of people. Normally, I interact with a lot of engineering, fraternity. So this is the first attempt to, to connect with, science and arts colleges, and with Deepa, Mangalam as the principal there, and with a lot of new acquaintances I am getting, in your institution. I'm sure, there will be a lot of opportunities for collaboration, and some of the doubts, that some of the people ask, I was not able to answer, but maybe we will record and definitely we'll get answers for that, because I got a large community of colleagues working in all the semiconductor organization. So you could just key in your clarifications. I could definitely facilitate answers to many of these things. So I really enjoyed this session, but it was little more than the normal 1 hour. But then such a large topic, we had to paint a story, so it took so much of time. So thank you so much, for all your presence, and the faculty and the students and the principal and the HOD and all of you. Thank you.
Shall I continue, sir?
Go ahead.
Okay. Our principal, Dr. Deepa, has been the driving force behind this whole process, and she has been a constant support and have given us a lot of encouragement, without whom this event should not have been possible. Thank you, ma'am. Thank you very much. And my heartfelt gratitude to Dr. Caroline Bina Mendes, the head of the Department of Physics, for her unflinching support and coordination. Now, I wish to thank Dr. Veena Suresh Babu, the coordinator, for the effective coordination of this program. And my heartfelt gratitude to all the participants who are present here. And the interest and the enthusiasm you have shown is indeed appreciated. I'm very happy the objective of the webinar is fulfilled. Thank you, one and all.
Thank you. Bye-bye.
Okay, sir.